Grabbing a lantern, he stepped out into the night. The sound grew louder, leading him to the iroko tree. There, sitting by the grave, was Sewa's ghost. Her figure shimmered like mist, her once beautiful face now hollow and full of sorrow. Once in the large village of Otema, surrounded by tall palm trees and clear streams, there lived a man called Jore. Jore was known far and wide as the wealthiest trader in the region. He owned farmlands as wide as the eyes could see, cattle that grazed on green hills, and bags of cowries piled in his huts. But Jore was lonely. His wife had passed away, and though he was kind-hearted, no woman in the village enticed him. Many whispered that his wealth would go to waste with no one to share it with. One sunny morning, while the villagers gathered at the river to fetch water, a stranger arrived in Otema. She was beautiful, with skin like the evening sky and eyes that shone like stars. Her name was Sewa. Her steps were graceful, and her voice was soft like a lullaby. The villagers couldn't stop staring as she walked through the market. Sewa said she was from a faraway village, looking for a fresh start. Jore saw her one day as he traded yams for baskets of fish. He couldn't take his eyes off her. It was as if the earth stood still when she smiled at him. "Who is that woman?" he asked the fruit seller. "She calls herself Sewa," the seller replied. "And it seems she caught everyone's eyes, not just yours." Jore was captivated. He approached her that evening during the village dance, offering her roasted maize. "You are welcome to Otema," he said, his voice steady but nervous. "What brings you so far from home?" Sewa's smile widened. "I go where the wind leads me." They both laughed, stealing glances at each other. Over the weeks, Sewa and Jore spent more time together. The villagers watched as she wrapped Jore in her charm. She would laugh at his jokes, sit with him in the shade of the iroko tree, and ask him about his life. But behind her bright smile, Sewa carried a secret. In truth, Sewa had heard of Jore's wealth long ago, long before she came to Otema. In her own village, she had struggled to make ends meet. The men in her village were poorer than church rats, and she didn't want to settle for any of them. When she heard about the rich trader, she saw an opportunity to escape her poverty. Sewa wasn't in love with Jore, she was in love with his riches. One night, as the moonlight spilled over the village, Jore proposed to Sewa under the same iroko tree where they often sat. He held a string of precious beads in his hands. "Sewa, will you be my wife?" he asked, his voice trembling with hope. Sewa pretended to hesitate, but inside she was gleaming. "Yes, Jore," she said softly, taking the beads. "I will be your wife." The villagers celebrated for days, drumming and singing in honor of their union. But not everyone was happy. An old woman named Nana, who lived at the edge of the village, had a strange vision. She told her granddaughter, "That woman, Sewa, brings trouble. Her shadow is not clean. Mark my words." Days turned into weeks, and Sewa became the mistress of Jore's house. She wore the finest beads, ate the richest foods, and walked with her head held high. Yet, she began to grow restless. What if he died tomorrow or something were to happen to him? His kinsmen would drag his riches with her, probably sending her back to poverty. "God forbid!" she yelled aloud, shrugging her shoulders. So in order to save herself from future problems, she wanted more for herself just in case. One day, while Jore was away at the market, Sewa searched his hut for more treasures. As she dug through his belongings, she found a small wooden box hidden under his sleeping mat. Inside were gold coins and strange charms wrapped in red cloth. One charm in particular caught her attention. It was a carved figure, small but heavy, with markings she didn't understand. That night, Sewa asked Jore about the charm. He grew serious and whispered, "That charm has protected my family for generations. It is why our wealth never runs dry. But it must never be misused, or it will bring ruin." Sewa nodded, but in her heart, she dismissed his warning. What harm could a little figure do, she thought. Over time, greed whispered louder in her ears. She began to plan a way to take everything for herself, and she would take his charm to protect her riches. One stormy night, when the winds howled through the trees and the rain beat against the huts, Sewa made her move. While Jore slept, she crept to where the charm was, and as soon as she touched it, a chilling breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the oil lamp. She froze but shook off her fear. "It's just the wind," she told herself. But strange things began happening in the days that followed. The cattle fell sick, and the crops wilted overnight. Jore became troubled, praying to the gods for answers. Sewa grew paranoid. She started hearing whispers in the night and felt as if unseen eyes were watching her. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Mama appeared at Jore's house. Her old eyes glimmered with wisdom. "Something is wrong," she said. "Your house has been disturbed." Jore frowned. "What do you mean?" "The charm," Nana continued. "Someone has meddled with it." Jore turned to Sewa, who was sitting silently by the fire. "Sewa, do you know anything about this?" he asked. Sewa's heart pounded, but she shook her head. "No, I don't," she lied. Nana stared at her for a long moment. "The gods see everything," she said quietly before leaving. That night, Sewa couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned until the first light of dawn. Then, without warning, she fell ill. Her body burned with fever, and no healer in the village could cure her. Jore stayed by her side, worried and confused. But deep down, Sewa knew the truth. The charm had cursed her. As her strength faded, Sewa realized too late the price of her greed. "Jore," she whispered one night, tears streaming down her face, "I have wronged you." But before she could confess everything, her breath slowed and her eyes closed forever. Nana, who saw the reason why she died, told her husband of her greed. The village mourned her death, but whispers of her betrayal spread. Nana, standing at the edge of the burial, muttered, "The gods do not forgive greed." Jore buried Sewa under the Iroko tree where he had first proposed to her. He sat there for hours, staring at the grave. He didn't know whether to feel sorrow or relief, but part of his life seemed empty without Sewa. He loved her, and now she was gone. After Sewa's death, the village of Otema returned to its usual rhythm, but Jore was a shadow of himself. He rarely spoke and spent most of his time under the Iroko tree, staring at Sewa's grave. The charm that once protected his family remained untouched, wrapped in a red cloth, hidden in its wooden box. But strange things began happening in the village. At night, villagers heard whispers carried by the wind. Some claimed they saw a figure wandering near Jore's hut, a figure with Sewa's face. Children spoke of cold hands brushing against them when they passed the tree. Even Jore couldn't sleep peacefully at night. He dreamt of Sewa every night, her face pale and sorrowful. her voice calling his name. One night, as the moon hung low and the village was cloaked in silence, Jore woke to the sound of soft crying. It was coming from outside the hut. Grabbing a lantern, he stepped out into the night. The sound grew louder, leading him to the iroko tree. There, sitting by the grave, was Sewa's ghost. Her figure shimmered like mist, her once beautiful face now hollow and full of sorrow. "Why are you here?" Jore asked, his voice trembling. "I cannot rest," Sewa said, her voice like the rustling of leaves. "The charm binds me. It holds my spirit in this world because of what I did." Jore fell to his knees. "What can I do to free you?" Sewa pointed to the hut. "You must destroy the charm. Burn it in the fire. Only then can I live." The next morning, Jore sought Nana. He told her everything, the whispers, the dreams, and Sewa's ghostly visits. Mama nodded gravely. "The charm is angry. It was never meant to be touched by greedy hands. But destroying it will not be easy. The gods will demand a price." "What price?" Jore asked. Nana didn't answer. She simply handed him a small calabash filled with white chalk. "When you burn the charm, mark your forehead with this. It should protect you." That night, Jore built a fire outside his hut. The villagers gathered, whispering among themselves as the flame rose high. Jore brought out the wooden box and unwrapped the charm. The moment it touched the air, the wind howled and the fire flickered wildly. As Jore held the charm over the flames, a voice boomed from the darkness. "Do you know what you are doing?" It was deep and unearthly, shaking the ground beneath them. Jore hesitated, but he remembered Sewa's sorrowful face. "Yes," he said firmly, "this must end." He dropped the charm into the fire. The flames roared, turning blue, and the ground trembled. The villagers screamed and ran, but Jore stood his ground, marking his forehead with the white chalk. A wailing cry echoed through the night, a sound so chilling it froze his blood. Then silence. The flames died down and the wind calmed. Jore fell to his knees, exhausted. Mama appeared beside him, her face grave. "You have freed her," she said, "but the gods have taken their prize." "What prize?" Jore asked weakly. "You will never know peace," Nana said. "The charm protected your wealth, your home, your life. Without it, you will lose everything." True to her words, Jore's fortune began to dwindle. His cattle grew weak and died. His crops failed, and his traders stopped coming to Otema. Soon, he was left with nothing but his hut and the iroko tree. Yet, he did not regret his decision. Sewa's ghost never appeared again, and the village returned to peace. Years passed, and Jore grew old. Though he had lost his wealth, the villagers remembered him as a man who faced the wrath of the gods to right a wrong. He spent his final days under the iroko tree, speaking softly to Sewa's grave. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in fairy hues, Jore closed his eyes for the last time. When villagers found him the next morning, they said he looked peaceful, as if he had fallen asleep. Some swore they saw two figures under the tree that night, Jore and Sewa, walking hand in hand towards the horizon. The iroko tree still stands in Otema, its roots entwined with the story of love, greed, and redemption. It is said that on quiet nights, if you sit under its shade, you might hear the soft laughter of two souls, finally at peace. The moral lesson of this story is that we should be contented with what we have, and should never covet what belongs to others. That we should forgive when we are wronged and not try to pay evil for evil, just like how Jore forgave Sewa and gave up everything just to free her spirit even though she had wronged him. And that love forgives all wrongs. What other moral lesson did you learn from this story? Please comment down below. Thank you. Until we see again, remember, do unto others what you want others to do unto you. Thank you, and see you next time.